So this man right here, Swordsman Mockman, recently got a bug fix, which severely changes the way this hero works. It basically is a fix. I will just put it that way. It is 100% a fix of the way it's supposed to, because essentially, if you guys didn't know what was happening, the transition skill was not working as it was described. It was actually working better at lower tiers, but now the fix makes it better at higher tiers, and we're going to explain why I say that. So essentially, this was basically, instead of saying when taking damage from active skills or basic attacks, consume 6 layers, it basically only did that like when he used it, or it procced off of his active skills and attacks. So it was really good. It was some absolutely crazy round 1 damage you would see from a Destiny transitioned Swordsman Mockman. However, the change has gone in, and I want to explain why. The fix was, I guess I'll say, needed, because again, it's a fix. That's what it is. It's not a nerf. It's a fix to how it was intended to be designed, and why now he might be one of the most overpowered Destiny Transition 6 hero once you get down to here. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. No, Swordsman Mockman is very much still alive over Doom Terminator Vulcan and other heroes like that can do crazy AoE damage. Let's talk about why. So as you know, this is still, to this day, probably the best round 1 active damage dealer for things like Void Campaign. Anything you want to just try to get as many of the enemies dead in round 1 as possible, and that is because his active ability hits like a truck. If you place him in the back row, he's going to be in his star descending form, which basically reads, reduces the armor of the enemies with the 2 lowest HP by 60%. That is more effective than you would actually think. Armor is a stat that a lot of people kind of disregard. Chases and attacks them with Omen Rift, dealing extra damage with a 50% chance to chase 1 more time, up to 5 times, and that's why this hero can super duper high roll on his active abilities here. Which is typically why, even on our account here, like, we don't really use our hero, but most of the time we're running him with a melodic strings, and that is essentially, as you all know, to do one thing and one thing only. We are gonna just chuck him in here. You put him in the back row so that he get his nice little yellow aura, and then he just procs his attacks so many times over and over here. You can see other heroes, Swordsman Mockman on that side too, getting attacks off. But that is what he does right there. He destroys enemy teams, but you do need him to be in star descending form, which isn't a problem because, well, I mean, as you guys can see here, usually it's strong enough to get you done. I mean, you can almost kill an entire team like this. However, placing him in the front row puts him in star ascending form, which is not exactly what you want. It really isn't, because he's not going to have that huge round 1 active damage. He still has a round 1 active, but he doesn't do nearly as much damage. And then on top of that, yeah, it's just not the way you want to run this hero. This hero is meant to have the most powerful round 1 active around. Before I forget it, we're going to go back to the flag before we continue talking about this hero, because there's a lot to talk about. Like I said, his Destiny transition skill, his basic version, which basically will last through Destiny transition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down to the bottom until you get to 6. It reads as stated: when taking damage from active skills or basic attacks in the state of star ascending, so again, that's the front row, consumes 6 layers of transition power to deal extra damage to frontline enemies, also inflicts damage, blah blah blah. So that's interesting because, you know, it was basically working off of his active skill, which of course, if he gets the 6 layers right away, he hits extra damage. There also inflicts the extra damage based on their max HP, all this other stuff. You see here, if star descending form consumes 6 layers and deals damage to backline enemies, which is kind of cool anyway, because usually you're hitting those backline targets anyway. That is strong, and that is why technically after this change, now this basically has to proc once he gets hit instead of him hitting, which is how it was originally intended. That's fine, but that does mean your round 1 actives definitely have less punch when trying to progress. However, what this does mean, and we're going to talk about a little later today, getting a hero all the way to Destiny Transition 6 It is a long journey. However, for this hero, it might be one of the most powerful. One of the biggest differences here, and we're going to read it, is changes that transition skill to when taking damage from active or basic attacks while in the state of star ascending form. If self has 6 or more layers, you deal the damage. It does no longer consume those layers, which means until he gets another active off, every single time he gets hit, he is going to continue to counterattack once it. So for example, round 1, he uses his active skill. Once he uses his active skill, we have this one right here set so that he has the 6 layers immediately. Then he is going to start hitting every frontline enemy, or if we go down, if he's in the back line here. Oh my god, I hate when this glitches out. This did this to us when we originally launched this. Oh, it just bugs out so much. There we go. If you're in star descending form in 6 more layers, you deal 1200% damage to all enemies. That is a big difference. It changes from backline enemies to all enemies. So even if you have in the back row, he uses that round 1 active for a lot of damage. Then he has those 6 layers of transition power. After that, every single time he gets hit, he's going to deal 1200% damage to all enemies. That is crazy, because until he uses another active skill and then gets to the 12 layers, that's when it changes a little bit. Consumes those 12 layers and deals damage to backline enemies with a 50% chance inflict to deal extra damage, which can be inflicted 4 times. So that's kind of big, where it's a nice big burst right there. But again, it still happens off of him getting and taking damage from an active or basic attack. I don't know if having a shield modifies this at all. I'm unsure, but I know a lot of people have been talking about the nerf to him lately. It is literally word for word now working the way it's verbally written in game. So it was a bug previously how it was working. I've seen some crazy damage numbers doing with this hero, but it's essentially going to make him weaker from Destiny Transition 1 all the way up to Destiny Transition 5. However, once you unlock Destiny Transition 6, well, that is going to be a huge power boost, because that means almost an entire round that if he gets hit, he's going to do all these counterattacks, dealing 1200% attack damage to every single enemy, which is just absolutely insane. It could get out of control very, very quickly. However, getting a hero to Destiny Transition 6 is not an easy task, which we'll be talking about a little bit later today. We have all the stats in like the accumulation essentially of what it requires to unlock Temple level 10, and that is what you need in order to have a tree that looks like this. But it's going to take quite a while for that to happen. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Let me know what you guys think. If you have had experiences with this hero, let me know. Do let me know as well if you've seen any other Transcendence heroes that have weird, buggy Destiny transition powers. I know Lexi has a crazy amount of information about every single bug that goes on with Sword Flash Shias, because a lot of these probably don't work properly, and if it's going to give them a buff, make sure you report it. If it's going to get them a nerf, just keep it to ourselves, okay? Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. I'll see you guys next time.